Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I hope you had a very productive first part of the day, and also yesterday. I understand you all already had quite a busy program. I'm very honored to be here, to be invited to talk to you about the topic of transport corridor development. And I've had some very good meetings with my panel here on the left of me to prepare this session, and it's been a very interesting discussion so far already, and I hope we will continue that as well. I'll do a very brief introduction before I will hand the floor to my panelists here, which will of course be the main part of the event today, and then we'll have time for a discussion as well. So first a little bit about myself and about my work and about the topic, and then we'll go into that. So maybe most of you have heard about the GIZ already, but just in case you don't know exactly what we are or what we do, the GIZ is a global service provider in the field of international cooperation for sustainable development and international education work. We have over 23,000 employees and are active in about 120 countries for the last 50 years on topics such as energy, environment, peace and security, but also economic development and employment, which is the topic of today, of course. So the GIZ mainly supports the German government, and in particular the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ as it's called in German, in achieving its objectives in international cooperation. And with this aim, GIZ works together with its partners to develop effective solutions that offer people better prospects and sustainably improve their living conditions. That is for the official part. So today we'll be looking specifically at the topic of trade. So as you might know, the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development recognizes international trade as one of the engines of inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction, and an important means to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Central Asia, as we will see in the discussion today, faces many challenges in this area, but is working quite actively on improving the framework conditions for trade. The GIZ project Trade Facilitation in Central Asia, of which I'm a part, supports our partners in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan in this effort by building their capacity to implement trade facilitation measures. We support, amongst other things, the implementation of risk management systems, also a topic for today, coordination on national and international level, and the creation of transit corridors. So these efforts will help Central Asia become better integrated in global and regional markets. So in this panel discussion today, we're going to look at the various aspects of this topic, which I thought was quite new to many of you, but I was just informed before this meeting that most of you, or a lot of you, have actually an economic background, so I hope this will elevate our discussion. So we will first listen to my neighbor, Shahnoza, who will explain more about transit corridors in general, give a bit of an overview of what exactly this means, and give some examples from experiences in Tajikistan. Dina then next will focus on economic issues and the role of Uzbekistan. Tamim will look at political opportunities and challenges, and finally Nazar will guide us through a very technical topic or technical challenge in the form of risk management systems. So with that, I hope we have then afterwards enough discussion time also for discussion. We talked about it beforehand because the topics really connect to one another. We want to gather the questions and have one general round for questions at the end. If you have very urgent questions that you want to have resolved right now, please let me know, then we'll try to accommodate that as well, but otherwise we'll try to keep that until the very end. So with no further ado, I would like to hand the floor to Shahnoza for the first presentation.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Shahnoza. So basically, what I want to say that the majority of time I will look at my paper, so no need to look at me. You can look at my presentation, because that will basically be more about it. Okay, so let's start from the definition of what is corridor. So a corridor is a road or set of parallel roads linking two gateways, usually port to port. So the corridor can be a road, railroad, sea road, or a combination of these. So all corridors are transit corridors, and in addition to serving intra-regional traffic needs, can be used to cross a single border or multiple borders. So within this, Asian Development Bank has developed 6 corridors, or we can say Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation and here and after corridors. So they are 6. Europe, East Asia, Mediterranean East Asia, Russian Federation, Middle East and South Asia, Russian Federation, East Asia, East Asia, Middle East and South Asia, and Europe, Middle East and South Asia. So basically today we will talk only about 4 corridors that they are basically connected to Tajikistan corridor transits. So let's start from the first one, so carry corridors. And in my presentation, the corridors are indicated with the blue arrows, so you can see them. Carry corridor 2, this is a multimodal corridor. So this is basically a rail, sea, road, and this provides a connection for China to Turkey through Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. The second corridor, it is corridor 3B. So it connects the Russian Federation and the Persian Gulf states via Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan as well. So it connects the northern mining and forest regions of Russia and Kazakhstan with the commodity procedures of the Middle East. So let's proceed to another correct corridor. So this is 6C. So this is one of the longest carry corridors connecting European states with the Middle East and South Asia. So this can be counted as a multimodal corridor, proceeds from Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and it enters Tajikistan in the north at the Bikabad BCP. So what I wanted also to point out here that the importance of the Karamic road for Tajikistan has increased in recent years since it ensures Tajikistan's road transport connectivity with Central Asian states and China, but unfortunately, it has not realized its full potential because of the latest restrictive policies of Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan towards Tajikistan that resulted in dramatic drop in the transit of goods through Uzbek-Tajik BCP in 2011 and the border conflict in the Kyrgyz-Tajik borders in 2020. So this is basically about the transit corridors that Tajikistan has. Now let's proceed to the potential of Tajikistan's corridors and their impact on service sector in expansion. So basically what I wanted to mention that Tajikistan needs a lot of investments in logistic infrastructure. So the lack of such infrastructure in Tajikistan is hindering both the development of the region and Tajikistan's ability to benefit from its geographical position. Why I mentioned it? Because imagine that those villages, those regions that are far from the transit corridors of Tajikistan, they are surviving. And Tajikistan needs to have good developed logistic infrastructure in order to have an active transit corridors in order to feed its population. So according to the strategy, by 2015, Tajikistan was supposed to build 3 transport logistic complexes in Khojan, Wahdat, and Nizhny Panj to increase regional transit through Tajikistan, but fortunately, that took place in 2020, and it accomplished by 2020, but not fully. So this is especially important due to the strategic location of free economic zones in northern and southern Tajikistan. Although short, mid, and long-term investments in the transport sector have been announced, a firm allocation of funding will be a major challenge for Tajikistan. So that's why I said that Tajikistan needs more investment on that. Last but not least, so what I wanted to say that to coming up all this, so road construction standards must be carefully examined and closely monitored by the relevant authorities. Applying advanced cement, concrete, and asphalt concrete pavements is a prerequisite for meeting the highest international standards. In order to reduce the construction and building costs, modern energy-efficient and energy-saving technologies should be introduced. That was for my part. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. If I can sort of wrap that up, I think what you saw on the picture, I think you mentioned it also a couple of times, the importance of what we're talking about here is about connectivity. I think it's very important to mention, you talked in the end about constructing roads, and I think this is touching on a key topic because Central Asian countries are dependent on roads. Like the specific nature of your countries is such that you don't have access to harbors, so you are really reliant on these corridors because you need to travel to different countries to reach your intended markets or to get your goods from somewhere else. So I think you picked it up very well with what you presented here. So thank you very much. Dina will continue then to talk about the economic potential of corridors and about Uzbekistan in particular.
Thank you very much. So my name is Dina, and I'm a student of AUCA majoring in economics. So I'm going to give more of an economic glance on this situation. And I would like to start with talking about something more in general. Why are we talking about the importance of transport corridors in Central Asia? So, this is more of a historical point that historically the region was connecting Asia with Europe, and it was quite important for connecting North and South as well. So remember the Great Silk Road, a lot of goods were traveling through the Central Asia, in particular through Uzbekistan, because it kind of geographically is right in the middle of the region. That's why we talk about the importance of trades nowadays in the region as a whole. And of course, like as Robbert mentioned today, the level of development of transport corridors in Central Asian countries matter a lot for inclusive economic development. And I would like just to give you a simple formula of how it works. If a country has well-developed transport corridors, meaning that it has a lot of roads and people can actually access jobs and education much easier, as well as fostering international trade and some other aspects. So this actually is what decreases poverty in general at the end. So this is an important aspect. And a lot of empirical studies show that there is significant role of investment in transport corridors for determining the success of the economy of a country, in particular Central Asian countries. So that is why we are talking about it now. And that is why so much money goes as a part of investment in the development of transport corridors in Central Asia. Well, of course, everything is not that easy with the region. We have quite a lot of pitfalls for the development of transport corridors between the countries. And talking about it, we can touch upon some of the political issues, some of the economic issues, such as lack of proper investment, inefficient management. Also, some of the geographical issues can, make the things go a bit more difficult. But like in my talk today, I'm going to touch upon some of the advantages and disadvantages of development of transport corridor in Central Asia, and maybe give some kind of forecasts on what's going to happen in the next few years and how the things are going now. Well, actually, one of the main problems with the Central Asia is that we do not have proper access to services. So, and the services, the price for services is quite high in the region. And actually, we do have something to export to other countries. So mainly that's, how do you think, what does the region of Central Asia mainly export to other countries? Any ideas? Agricultural products, yes, that's right. So actually, yeah, exactly. Raw materials in agriculture, agricultural products are among the main aspects of exports to other countries. And the problem, the very basic economic problem is that what we import in the region from other more successful, economically more successful countries, the value for these goods is quite higher. So the value of imports that go into Central Asia is quite high, but what we export back, even if we export much more in quantity, the value is quite low, such as some raw materials or agricultural products. So this, by the very simple economic equation, makes the trade balance negative. And actually, the GDP is also takes into consideration the trade balance, and if we import more than we export back, this actually makes our GDP subtract some of the huge amounts of money from the gross domestic product, and this basically affects the economic condition of the country. So the problem is that, can you imagine, for a second, imagine the world map, and I'm going to tell you the 2 points, like Poland and Turkey. So imagine the way between Poland and Turkey, and now actually imagine the second pair is any Central Asian country and China. Let's take Shanghai to be more specific, because China is quite large. So the studies show that the price of exporting goods from any Central Asian country to China is 5 times as high as exporting goods from Poland to Turkey. Even though geographically we have quite a few borders, you know, like Kyrgyzstan actually shares a huge border with China, and still to be able to transport goods from Kyrgyzstan to China, say, is going to cost you 5 times as much as exporting the same goods from anywhere else. So this basically is one of the next economical problems, because actually if you know the price at which your good is going to be sold in the foreign country takes into consideration the basic costs which have been included into transportation. And imagine that if transportation is quite costly, then the price is going to be quite costly of the price of your good in a foreign country, and this actually can make your good less competitive compared to others, because one of the main reasons for international trade is the difference in prices. So the less is the difference, the less competitive your good is. So maybe compared to some other states which have higher prices on a good but lesser travel costs for their shippings. So another point is the absence of connectivity between the Central Asian countries, and we have quite an insufficient infrastructure. This is the reason, by the way, that for the past 10 years, the World Bank has invested over $5 billion on building proper roads in Central Asian countries. And still, this is not up to its best position. We still have a lot of things to do. We still do not have proper roads anywhere, in particular between the states. So this makes it much more difficult to transport goods between the states. Also, as I said, expensive services and limited access to services or jobs, and also maybe, if I can say that, a little bit poor human capital, because a lot of people on the borders do not know how to use basic computer skills, as Robbert mentioned yesterday. So the computer literacy is quite low, and the digitalization is at a quite low level. So yeah, this is these are one of the aspects which actually influence this all. Actually, even though we have managed to increase, the Central Asia managed to increase its exports to other countries, we are still considered to be a middle class country. We cannot state that we are quite rich. This still affects the economy. This is an important indicator of an economy, but still, like, there are a lot of trade coefficients, indices, by which Central Asian countries are not at the top, of course. That's why we have some of the programs which are interested in fostering the development of transport corridors in Central Asia. For example, one of them has been mentioned by Shahnoza, that's CAREC, that's a Central Asian Region Economic Cooperation campaign, or I could say the organization, managed by the Asian Development Bank. And they have managed to invest hugely into the infrastructure of the Central Asian countries, but still this is not the best of what could be done. There is always lack of investment, lack of skilled people who could develop the idea further. And the second one is TIR, which is another company which suggests, it calls actually itself the best provider of mutually recognized procedures at the borders, the company which can help goods from one country go to the other country according to some mutually recognized procedures, so that not to spend much time at the borders. And this reduces the time of say cars waiting at the borders, etc. So by the way, talking about the borders, I would like to touch upon such things as in Central Asia we've got one more interesting thing is bribes. So at the borders, if you know, that's quite a popular thing to do. This actually again hardens the development, and we can also talk about the ecology as well, because this is one of the next problems. Like, insufficient management at the borders makes a lot of cars wait in a row for a few days or even weeks, and they actually do give some CO2 emissions into the air, which makes the whole thing much worse, even for the ecology. So like the improper management makes it go into some ecological problems at the end. And for example, TIR, what it does is it reduces the time waiting at the border of another country by 80%. So because this is a system mutually accepted by the two states, if they do accept this policies, And for example, the good, when you ship something, say from Uzbekistan to the other European country, they can receive it much faster because they know that what is inside. They have the documentation. It's going to be digitalized, I guess. And the cost of transportation is reduced by 35%. So this is the official data. And I think the figure of 80% of reduced time is quite significant and impressive, because it's almost like 80% less time you spend at the customs. And this is again coming back to the products that we export. That's mainly agriculture. This is quite important because when we export vegetables or fruits, they cannot be stored for quite long times, and this is better to let them go through the customs as fast as possible. Also, the last thing I would like to mention is that due to some political tensions, the development of transport corridors can also be hardened. For example, there is a huge project which can link China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan by one road. And this is going to be a road which is going to export further goods to Europe. So it's going to be a new window to Europe. And actually the problem is that everything is set and ready except for Kyrgyzstan, because as the Kyrgyz government states, they do not have sufficient investment for this project, and they do not have money to build the railroads. And this actually could have improved the things a little bit. So Russia was also among one of the biggest investors in the Central Asia in terms of transport corridor, but it's quite interesting that this time Russia denied to invest in Kyrgyzstan to help to provide a loan to Kyrgyzstan. And the reason is that, again, touching up on some of the politics, Russia has a monopoly over Chinese goods in Europe. So like actually Chinese goods go through Russia to the Europe, and now China suggests using Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. So this actually is probably not in the interest of some other countries, and this maybe is one of the reasons why this project has not still been implemented. And of course, we believe that in the future we can provide a lot of trainings. Some European countries are also quite interested in developing the transport corridor procedures in Central Asia, so that to raise qualified people who could further implement more efficient management to the export and import, to the trade itself, to the transport corridors. Maybe we could be able to attract more investors so that they build the roads, and then to show them the potential that actually the region plays a great role in the regional and international connectivity, because a lot of goods go through Central Asia because of China and some other neighboring countries. And of course, we believe that corruption is one of the things that has gone so traditional so far, but maybe that could be, again, kind of eliminated from a very idealistic perspective. So these are the main things that harden the procedure. And to give you one of examples, like Uzbekistan has been successfully implementing some digital solutions in exporting goods to some other countries, for example, Pakistan. So Uzbekistan came to help of TIR, that was the, company that implements mutually agreed procedures. So if Uzbekistan exports something to Pakistan, in Pakistan's borders, they already know what's going to be inside of this. So they do not have to check each of the cars manually. So they just use some smart solutions to that. And this, again, reduces time, reduces the CO2 emissions, and of course makes the transportation costs much lower, which actually makes the price of the local good in a foreign country not to be so high. This actually fosters the demand for your good, which is a key for selling something in a foreign country. This actually has to bring something to your own country. So I think we believe that if someone is quite interested in this topic, you could go through some professional trainings, and maybe even raising awareness of this. What we were thinking is that even raising awareness of this topic is quite important for you to think economically, because like one of the descriptions of development from the perspective of sociology is that people have an economic view on some things. So let's think economically, let's maximize profits and minimize costs. Thank you.
I think we can sum that up by saying time is money, literally in case of trade. Like you talked about making your markets attractive to foreign investors also, and especially with your dependence on road and already having longer transport routes, like having very lengthy, costly, time-consuming border procedures really put an additional burden on traders. And this is a very important topic that you can address. You talked a lot about infrastructure, but I think that's also a very important topic. You also hinted, of course, about the next topic there's a good bridge to our next speaker, is the political will also. Like a trade as like international trade needs more than one country. It's not something you can decide by yourself. And you're dependent also on the political will of your counterparts to improve your efforts there. So this is what we're going to talk about next. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to also thank Shahnoza and Dina for giving you insight about the importance of transport corridor and also some economic aspects of the importance of transport corridor in order to reach regional and overall development. Well, coming from politics background, I try always to connect things with politics. Now, when we think of such a huge topic of trade facilitation and transport corridors, then we need to think about the rule of state. And also, when we talk about the rule of state, we need to think like specifically in Central Asia and if you include Afghanistan as well, how are the decisions made? Who makes the decisions? And to talk about Central Asia, we can say like the decisions are made top down. So it's more like centralized. The state decides what to do, which trade agreements should they enter or they should sign, and what kind of policies should they come up with in order to do trade in region or in an international perspective. That's why, to make it short, I have outlined the political aspect of trade facilitation or transport corridors in 3 parts: the institutions, which is more an internal issue, and also the relationship of Central Asian states with each other, and the third one is more a global aspect of this issue, how states actually integrate or cooperate with international organizations, with states which locate outside this region, where there is a potential market for Central Asian goods and services. So to start with institutions, as it was mentioned by my colleagues, we do need infrastructure, but also we do need facilities or we do need institutions that could facilitate trade between countries in the region. Especially when we talk about trade, we talk about cross-border trade. So we need institutions like customs or ministries to facilitate import or export of goods or transit of goods in the region. That is why it's an issue in Central Asia. We know that sometimes in terms of time, it takes a lot of time for a certain good to transit from one border to another border, or sometimes there is less capacity in borders in order to timely pass goods from one place to another place. So institutions, they matter in order to facilitate trade in this region. And then the second point, as I mentioned, the political relationship of states with each other. You all know that there have been some conflicts between states, and it causes disruption of trade within the region, also transiting goods from one specific country to outside markets or to the next country in the region, because Central Asia, they are quite connected to each other, so they need transit routes in order to export certain goods from one country to another country. So speaking from that perspective, the relationship of states between each other in Central Asia it's quite important in order to use this transport corridors to reach development. And the third part is also about the interaction of Central Asian states with global market, with states out of Central Asia. For instance, how Central Asian states integrate themselves in international treaties or organizations such as the WTO, World Trade Organization. You know that not all Central Asian states are members of WTO. For instance, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are still in negotiation with WTO in order to be a full member and use the facilities that this treaty provides for member states. Just to give them a little bit insight about being a member of WTO or World Trade Organization, member states, they use some opportunities like bilateral or multilateral trade agreements that facilitate trade in between the member states. Also, WTO has certain policies. Member states have to be more market oriented, meaning they will be more friendly to outside investment, especially for the foreign direct investment or FDI. As it was mentioned by my fellows, that attracting investment from outside is one of the challenges. For instance, in case of Tajikistan or in case of Uzbekistan, also to attract foreign direct investment, you need to have friendlier policies towards this investment. I mean, for that you need to have some certain policies. You need to have certain facilities for outside investors in order to come to your country and invest, so that you would reach overall development in your country. And yes, so we also see that there is a lack of cooperation between Central Asian states, not just in terms of closing borders towards each other, but also certain protectionist policies. If we talk from an economic perspective, like you put higher tariffs for the certain goods that come from other countries, especially from the region, which makes it less competitive for the certain goods that come from other country, and more you become more friendly to your own domestic or domestic industries in order to somehow compete with the goods that come from outside. I would like to end up my notes here, and I would like to give the floor to Robbert. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I would sum part of this, at least, I would sum it up as like customs as a service provision. I think this move, and this is also leading to the next topic again, like when we consider customs, sorry, my voice is a little bit, customs procedures as a way to secure also your own interest, the state, like it has a protection function, but it is also, it also has a service element where you're also trying to support your own private sector. So you're trying to support your own traders and making it easier for them to do business in other countries. And I think this is also a bit of a culture shift. And we're going to talk about this also in the next presentation, about how technological solutions can also play a role here. Again, coming back to the time is money aspect as well, talking about speeding up border procedures in order to save costs and time. So.
So we talked about the problems and challenges about the trade facilitation in not in general in Central Asia, like political challenges and also infrastructural challenges and others. Before I start my presentation, and I would like to ask the audience, what kind of solutions do you think can facilitate trade in Central Asia in a better, considering the the different aspects that we are having and the political situations and others. Who has a good idea to facilitate trade? Should we do air corridors like we do in Afghanistan, or like should we adopt any other policies?
It quite depends on how you approach the issue. As someone with a background in politics, Tamim painted that picture quite clearly. As a state leader, I would always try to adopt protectionist policies to protect my domestic market. But that doesn't really work in the business and trade world. You have to adopt policies that are mutually beneficial to all member states. But unfortunately, in the case of Central Asia, in the wider Asian region, we have seen states adopting measures that actively pursues foreign markets but blocks their own market for foreign products. Like the example of Pakistan, when it comes to Afghanistan, they actively pursue open market in Afghanistan, but they always close their own border products of Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Who else? Do we have any other opinion? Okay, so let me, my presentation is more technical, so it's a technical solution how to facilitate trade, and it's a case study from Central America, and it's really applicable for Central Asia as well. So have you heard of Asikuda system, or like the risk management systems? So Asikuda is a risk management system, so it's adopted by several countries. Asikuda itself is a software, like technology, and it's a technology that stores data by the two parties, like the states or the customs of different countries. And through that, we can really facilitate trade and increase the volume of trade over time in between countries. So why we are not thriving, like Central Asia is not thriving? As our colleagues discussed, we have different challenges, starting from political challenges to economic, legal challenges as well, and cultural challenges, and trust between countries, and specifically the customs can be really big issue to the trade. And as we said, we have corruption, like Dina noted about the corruption level between the customs that really hinders the trade in Central Asia. We have other inefficiencies. We have high cost for transportation of products between the customs. Those are really big challenges, and we can really use smart solutions to change it, as they have done it in Central America. Can we move? So this is a case that we can move a truck between two borders in 4 minutes. It seems very impossible in Central Asia, but it had happened in Central America, in El Salvador and its neighbors. So what they have done is they have built a single window. What do we mean by integrated system? So it's composed of 4 parts, like the single window and like single document, Asikuda system, and also the transport, one stop in the between the customs. So what's single window? By single window, we mean the whole parties, stakeholders involved in the trade. For example, starting from the banks, insurance, brokers, they all are available in a single facility in the border. That really makes the thing easy for a trader to go through them in one point. So, and in El Salvador, they have done it, and they have brought representatives of the banks, insurance, brokers, and other parties involved. to one facility, and when a trader comes to the customs, they can just go through all of them at once, and it's really efficient and really time saving for them. Yeah, they have adopted it in Central America. So can we move? Why it's applicable? It's applicable because of several reasons, and we can see it. Can we move to next? Because both of Central America and Central Asia is not rich, and they really need smart solutions to optimize and also benefit from that. And there are other challenges as well. Can we move? There are crimes involved in the trade here. For example, it's also in Central America, but also in Central Asia as well. A lot of the illegal trade is involved in the borders as well. Not just from the customs, but like illegally through the border when there is no monitoring. And there are guns and narcotics as well involved, especially the narcotics that is coming from my country, unfortunately, crosses from some of the Central Asian countries. And yeah, and that really creates a problem for whole the state agencies, and really decreases the trade volume as well, and shifts the bulk part of the economy from the formal economy to informal economy as well. So, what are the similarities between Central America and Central Asia? They have complex borders. For example, if you observe Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan and also Tajikistan near the Fergana Valley, they are like very complex. It's one of the complex borders in the whole world, and yeah, that's why they are similar, and they also have the same language. For example, in Central America, they use Latin, but here they use Russian. So the solutions can be really applicable. And they have the same prospects for development. For example, as Dina said, in Uzbekistan, IT sector is developing, and in other areas, agriculture is also developing. In energy, in agriculture. So the prospects of development is very similar between the 5 Central Asian countries. And so, like, I went too much. Let's go back to the country. Yeah. So what's real single window? So the picture you see is from El Salvador, and like there are people from the whole stakeholders, including insurance, banks, and for example, the lady is a trader, and she submits the document. And by the way, the documents, can we move on? The document is named SAD, Single Administrative Document. So it involves, it acts as a certificate of origin. If you trade, customs requires you to have a certificate of origin as well as an invoice and declaration. So it acts as 3 types of the document for them. Yeah, and when a trader submits this to the real single window, the customs that take this can process it in 18 seconds. So it's really efficient, and it can transfer the data submitted to the other part of the transport is happening. For example, Kyrgyzstan, a trader from Kyrgyzstan goes to Uzbekistan, can submit the document, and it will be available to the Uzbek side in 18 seconds. That's efficiency. And they will have the access to the type of good, and when it was registered in the system, and how much they are due to pay for the trade, and what will be their share. So, like, this is the inside of the facility. Can we move? And what is this based on? This is based on the technique from in Soviet countries. Mostly the trade across borders are checked. Like every truck that crosses from Uzbekistan to Uzbekistan is checked manually each time. and it's really time consuming. So what this system does is like it goes from detection to prevention, and this really reduces the time of checkup between the trucks, and it happens based on the reputation of the companies. For example, if you have a company and you are a trader, you build the relationship with the customs, and based on your performance, the algorithm detects how much of your product is more risky or not. For example, but there will be random checks as well. So it depends more between the customs and the individual trader. And the individual trader does not, or mostly does not, try to risk their reputation for only one illegal crossing. And what are the benefits? The benefits is in both sides. It's less infections, it's more efficient, and less time consuming, and also costs less money, by the way. And the traders always have money deposited in a bank, so when they go to the customs, they're not charged. I mean, they only submit the document, so there's no space for bribing. Either the product goes or stays there. And there can be joint inspections from the both sides. For example, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan can randomly try to check the transports that are happening, if not daily, maybe weekly basis, depending on the suggestions by the systems. And it really involves two sides of the parties, like the customs and of the Uzbek side, and also the Kyrgyz side or any other countries, and increases the cooperation, and yeah, and it's almost like electronic. There's no paper involved except the single document that you need for administrative purposes. Yeah. And it's mostly based on, as Tamim said, political will. If there is no political will, this cannot happen. I mean, if one country is willing to do it, but the other countries don't, it's useless. So it really requires political will. And in case of El Salvador, the guy was, the president of the El Salvador was trying to increase his tax, the tax revenue, so they really pushed the authorities to do it in 2 months, like to adopt the system in 2 months and do it as fast as possible. Yeah, and as we said, it changes the risk management approach from detection to prevention. To prevent, and the prevention is really good. And it's adopted from the World Customs Organization's SAFE framework, and you can read it for your information later. Yeah, to sum up, we use single window, and there's a communications between customs and registration, pre-registration, and it's a database risk management, involves several parties with joint inspections, and it's electronic, and it comes with a service mentality. Yeah, and it's beneficial for the economy as well. So it improves the logistics environment, and lowers the export-import costs, and also reduces the inventories of the traders. For example, because the traders can have a tendency to sell it very quickly, and also improves the competitiveness of the businesses, and there will be more FDI inflow, and more trade in general. Yeah. Why we don't do it? This is a question for you. Yeah. And these are the proposed measures. these are the proposed measures. So we have, for example...
Sorry, I really have to cut you. I'm very sorry, I have to cut you off because I think we have like 10 minutes left for discussion also.
Yeah.
And maybe before the proposed measures, we can actually also turn to the floor and see if there's any comments from you. One comment to why don't we do this here? We actually do this here. Like it's in various stages of development in various Central Asian countries, but we don't have enough time to really go into details on that. But I also really want to give the floor the opportunity to respond to the many inputs we had. So you proposed a technical solution in a very optimized way. Like this is one, like Azikuda is one system that you could introduce, but we see there's economical and political problems that prevent such a system from fully being implemented. So I would like to use the last 10 minutes of our time to turn to you and see what the topics are that you want to talk about. I saw a hand first of all over there, so I would like to give you the floor first.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really visually supporting all your comments, so it was helpful to assess everything you said. So my question is based on El Salvador. Currently it counts as one of the poorest countries, but if they integrated the system, I want to know when it integrated and is there data available that proves that it was effective so far? And are there another, for example, this system seems good, but right now there are new technologies emerging such as blockchain that allows every party to also have one window system and every kind of basically even ask and track this information and it's super transparent. And do you know any of the solutions that some governments already implemented, or is there a plan? And what kind, like if you assess these differences, do you have any like just general information about all this? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I guess it was adopted between 2009 to 2014. Obviously there are other systems being implemented, as Dina said here, and others. And in terms of El Salvador, they did it to improve the revenue income for their economy. And they're really good in terms, they might be poor, but they are good in terms of adopting technologies. Maybe you are aware of the recent president that they're the first country to have adopted Bitcoin as their payment. Yeah, obviously there will be updates.
I don't know about the experiments in Latin America, so I cannot give you any data on this. I know like risk management as a system is used in many contexts, like in the European Union, with which I have the most experience, I would say. There's very, like the idea is that you check as few trucks as possible, basically. Like the amount of shipments that you actually check will be much lower. Under the basically the realization that when you do 100% check, it's still not a guarantee that you will catch everything. It just takes you a lot of time, but people still manage to get stuff through. So such a system, which is probably built over a long time because it builds on experience and like traders that you also mentioned, traders build this trusted relationship. I gave the example yesterday, if I transport bananas across the border for several years, they know after a while that I'm not hiding anything in there. It's still not a guarantee, of course. Like like you talked about your country, like shipping stuff across the border. I'm from the Netherlands, and we have, like I don't think I don't have any sources here, but you don't have to Google very long to find that the Netherlands is a very big exporter of chemical hard drugs. Because we have a lot of ports, and despite all the systems, it's still not possible to catch everything. The question you have to answer in the end is, are you going after everything, or do you accept there's a certain risk that you will not catch everything, but in the end, the benefit of having faster trade procedures outweighs the fact that some stuff will slip through in the end. And I think this is the assessment that you have as a state have to make in the end. Now, regarding blockchain, I'm not aware of any usage in the context of risk management per se. I know for supply chain management, or like tracking of supply chains, I know there are certain product experiments with, like you can trace like certain fruits, like all the way back to the farm where they are from by just scanning the QR code, for instance. This sort of things happened in supply chain. But I'm personally not aware of anything in a customs context, which doesn't mean it isn't there, just I don't know about it.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Just talk like that. So maybe Tamim and Nazar can answer the question. How do you factor in for issues such as data Taliban, the rise of the Taliban, which has completely reshaped the economic cooperation sort of landscape between Central Asia and South Asia, like Pakistan and China. So what can be done in such kind of situation? Protests in Kazakhstan, which affected the Kazakh economy and in general the whole Central Asian economy. What can be done with that?
Well, I guess there won't be that much of change because the systems are in place, and even with the, with new regime, there will be. There are people, if not higher level, but in middle level, doing the jobs. And Afghanistan is also using the Asikuda system as well. So there won't be significant change if the political will is to keep the trade balance stable, which Uzbekistan is really willing to do business with Afghanistan and also with South Asia as well. And I cannot speak for Kazakhstan.
I think I can add that, you mentioned it very correctly, that it depends on the political will, because as far as I know, Taliban, they claim that they are interested in facilitating trade, and I know that Uzbekistan and Afghanistan are currently working very closely on some of their railroad systems, and I even know that some of the roads in Afghanistan used to belong to Uzbek railroad company, but now there is a process of Afghanistan privatizing these roads, and also I can say that one of the latest projects is that there used to be a floating bridge between Afghanistan and Uzbekistan somewhere at the border, because we know that a lot of goods go from Afghanistan to Uzbekistan and further, and I know that currently they managed to collect enough money to substitute this bridge, and now it's going to be not a floating but a fixed bridge for some, for some much more massive trucks. And I believe maybe this is the reason that Taliban, they are interested. I don't know, I have not gone so far into the technicalities, but seems like they are interested because maybe they understand the economic benefits of this, of facilitating trade.
Shortly, I would like to add, in terms of Afghanistan relationship with Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan is one of the double landlocked countries. So, and recently what happened in Russia and the invasion of Ukraine and so forth, I don't want to comment on that, but Uzbekistan is trying to build a friendlier relationship with new regime in Afghanistan, with the Taliban, in order to substitute its transit roads. One of the ways for Uzbekistan to get access to sea is through Afghanistan and through the Gwadar port in Pakistan. So Uzbekistan is actually supporting the regime in some economic projects, and they have even discussed building this railroad between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan. So there are such examples that show that regime change does not change this economic cooperation unless the political will changes and they try to avoid cooperation.
Thank you. I just have a quick look at the organizers, how much time we have left. Are we already running out of time? We're running out of time. So maybe I can ask if there's one last question. Is there someone who wants to make a final comment here or a final that does not? Please, yeah.
So you all talked about political will, all these that are associated with. But my question again comes back with regional cooperation. We have seen, Uzbekistan is an exception to the case of Taliban. We have seen increased trade relations with the Taliban regime. But we have also observed on the ground in Afghanistan that experts who use the Asikoda system, or any other experts for that matter in the Ministry of Finance and other public sectors have been fired and substituted for people who don't even know how to write, let alone use a computer. But again, coming to the point of hostile relations from other states that are members of the Central Asian region, for example, Tajikistan, or overall, Taliban are still a terrorist organization. They are still recognized as a terrorist group by the United Nations, and in all the trade embargoes on the Taliban regime right now can seriously limit the ability of other states. So how can states in such kind of volatile environment, as is right now with the case of Russia, a lot of heavy sanctions, anyone who enters or touches the Russian market without the permission of United States can seriously be affected. So how can Uzbekistan or these other Central Asian states still do business with Afghanistan or any other country in the region and not be affected by heavy sanctions from the United States and the international community?
Just shortly, first about technical issue. As I mentioned with my fellows, my father works in this sphere, and at the beginning of the fallout of the Republic, there was some disruptions. They did not use the ASICODA system. Everything was manually, like 20 years ago. But now they have, some of the employees, the former employees, they work there, and the custom is still using this technology. And about Central Asian economic relationship with Afghanistan, well, there are two things. Either you ignore the 30+ million people and you block the supply chain of especially food, grains to Afghanistan, or you try to compromise in a way that you focus on humanitarian aspect of this trade rather than political one, which is something doing the Central Asian states doing. Even during the pandemic, Kazakhstan stopped exporting its flour to even region, but it kept supplying to Afghanistan because we are heavily dependent on foods that comes from Central Asia.
Do you want to have the final word? I think
Yeah.
we really have to wrap up in order not to get in
Okay.
trouble with
I'll be
the
quick.
organization.
So just the thing that I wanted to say that we need a tight cooperation of Central Asian countries. Why I said that because we face the challenge of border conflicts, and you know that I wish you know that how we passed the border of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Even we don't have any good behavior towards each other, how we can tightly connect, have a cooperation with each other. So you know that if we will build such a good cooperation between Central Asian countries, you know how we will be stronger than other countries within the perspective of political, social, and economic as well.
I think there's a very good message to end on. So thank you very much. Thank you to the audience for your questions and your attention, and thank you for my panel over here for your valuable contribution. It's been a pleasure to be here with you, and I wish you good luck with the rest of your event.